Ladies and gentlemen, former President Donald Trump is dead. That's right, dead serious about Project 2025 happening. Hello, I am John Wheeler, and this is my special guest co-host Chris, where we always get into these deep conspiratorial things. It's sort of a special podcast because it's actually this pressing news event was so important. This is actually coming out on time for once, which is amazing. That shows you the amount of hustle and the amount of importance. Chris was the one who texted me yesterday, being like, "Are you watching TV?" Someone just shot at Trump at a Trump rally, which I immediately started thinking about. There was that. Remember that in Metalocalypse when for some reason Nathan Explosion was running for governor of Florida or whatever, and he and he was like naming the hurricanes, and it was the most important part of his job. But he was at some sort of rally thing where he's like, "I promise to do all this stuff and whatever." And he's like, "Now let me hear those guns," and everyone in the crowd just starts firing off like carbine rifles and things, and it's just like, yeah, they just let. And you might go, "Oh, did this happen because they actually let people do that?" No, it turns out they don't actually allow you, even at a Trump rally, to bring your guns in.
No, and it was kind of ironic how quickly people at that rally were really mad about somebody getting a gun in somewhere that they weren't supposed to have one.
Well, and that's just further proof to me that the fact that they don't allow guns at those at all is just plain un-American. I mean,
This also made me think of there's a South Park where Kenny he's going to shoot Cartman because he becomes a NASCAR driver and he's bringing his rifle into the NASCAR stadium.
Yeah.
And the guy stops him at the metal detector. He's like, "You can't bring that in here." And Kenny's like, "God damn," he throws it down and walks. And the guy, as he's rolling away, is like, "You could probably buy one at the gift shop." That to me actually would be the most Trump rally thing, where it's like, yeah, you're not supposed to have illegal guns in here because we have ones we're going to sell you when you get here.
Yeah, the problem, it's not that we're like, oh, we're not really like concerned about anyone's safety, because we're not. It's just like, hey, like, you can't sneak your own booze in here. You have to buy one of these $35 watered down beers from the fucking Metrodome or whatever back in the day. But you can't.
Oh, they're still selling them at Target Field too. They're just even smaller and even more watered down and more expensive. Yeah.
I need an excuse to go. I haven't been to Target Field, and I'm someone that, like, as much as I'm, except for the Super Bowl, which is always funny. I don't tend to really like watch sports, but if people are going to like a game or something, I'm like, oh, live. It's like, yeah, for me, it's fun. Like, I'm not that big of a goth kid where I'm like, I'm like, no, it is fun to go to a thing, and I've never been there,
Baseball's cool, too, because it's outside and you don't really even have to watch, because, like, even half the time the players aren't even watching.
Nobody's paying attention to baseball.
Nobody's paying attention, I'll tell you now, too, I was just going to say with baseball, too, is we're really only in this new era of, like, the last 15 to 20 years where they, like, don't drink and smoke weed in the dugouts. Like, that was a real thing for a long time in baseball.
Oh, some of my favorite stuff, and this is where my sort of, I think peripheral is the word, peripheral sort of enjoyment of baseball is all of the baseball terror from history. Like, the thing where Doc Ellis pitched a no-hitter on LSD, and he was also taking tons of Benzedrines and things, too. So that he owes a little to that. And that shit's hilarious, and a bunch of those... The free beer, or the 10-cent beer riot in, I think it was Cleveland in the 70s, which of course, where they were like, 10-cent beer night after the teenage girls they hired to sell the beer got scared off when everybody started like flipping the stands and the trucks over, quickly became free beer night. And that's when things got a little bit worse. It's all these unemployed factory workers just ransacked the whole thing.
I was thinking too, because my great aunt, rest her soul, had a scorecard that she had come up to see the Yankees play the Twins in their inaugural season, like 1960, 1961, when it was still at the Met Center where Mall of America is now. And the box score actually had the ads inside for, and this is why you would have just loved baseball in the early 60s.
Yeah.
It was like 50 cents for a cigar, which is like now if you lit up a cigar, if you lit up a cigar even outside with nobody around, it's like it would take 10 seconds before somebody would freak the fuck out. But they actually sold also for 50 cents just straight up pipe tobacco. So it's like people you could just go there, and watch the ball game, and it's like obviously you're wearing your suit and your leather hat. And whatever. Oh, yeah, and you brought your pipe, but you forgot to bring any tobacco, or
you have just handily smoked through everything you brought. Like, well, I guess by the third inning, I might need to go pick up a little bit more pipe tobacco.
Well, I mean, these 5-cent beers were, they just went down really smooth, and now that I'm 12 deep, by the fourth inning, I probably need to re-up on the pipe tobacco, or otherwise I'm going to have to smoke a cigar.
Yep, and those are...
And who wants to do that? I brought my kids with me.
Yeah.
I'm only going to blow pipe smoke in their face. I'm not gonna...
It's the best smelling smoke, though. Pipe smoke is the only thing that... I mean, we're a team and all. I'm not doing the boomer, wife joke stuff, but... Because I agree with this. Pipe tobacco is the only tobacco I can smoke inside the house, because it actually makes it smell better in here. Whereas, even a nice cigar in the house is way too much.
Yeah.
It just stinks it up real weird for a while, and, obviously... I don't smoke real cigarettes. These are CBD. I'm sitting here saying that, well, if you're a first-time watcher, I sit here just ripping a dart podcast doesn't count. No, these just kind of smell like ditchweed from the 90s, which is a fine smell.
It's weird, though, with cigarettes, how they just linger with such a smell, and yet weed is very smelly and potent.
It goes away.
But it goes away.
It's all if this tells you anything.
It's just all the other shit that's in there.
Because pipe tobacco, also, it smells kind of nice. It's very noticeable, but then it's gone.
Yeah.
It'll smell a little bit like the caramel corn in a mall in the 90s or something for a little while. And it's which is fine. And then that also goes away, though. Cigarette smoke just fucking...
God, it just stays.
Permanently turns your home into a bowling alley. It's just fucking... I guess for back in the day, you can't smoke in there anymore.
It's like fucking glitter. You, even get it on your skin and, 4 showers later. It's like, Jesus Christ, was I in a fucking bar somewhere?
Dude, it's so weird to think about how they used to allow that in bars, and therefore also at, First Avenue. People just smoked in there, and you would leave, you smelled more like cigarettes than even BO and concert sweat and everything. Just for you had. I mean, obviously you should take a shower after a sweaty concert, no matter what. But I mean, you had to, because it was in your hair, and it was just you just pick clothes that you didn't care about as much.
It always made me laugh too that you used to be able to smoke cigarettes in venues, and as a touring musician for a long time, I always had this thought of it really. I don't love it, but I don't really care. My only issue where I would care is if I was frontman and the raspiness on the vocals, and then it's
I kind of hated it for that back in the day.
But at the same time, it's almost all of my favorite singers throughout rock and roll history absolutely smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, I think that's the problem,
though. That may be a thing, so it's maybe it's just not even...
Well, it was legal because everybody smoked.
Yeah.
America used to be how Southeast Asia is right now, where it was just someone said something really funny. They went on a trip to I don't think it was Anthony Bourdain, but it was somebody, and they went to because they were oh, not only do they smoke how we did in the 50s, they kind of drink how we did in the 50s too, and it's there's 3 things you'll never hear in whichever. I don't want to pick the wrong countries. No, you can't actually do that in Taiwan. I don't remember. Yeah. But they're Southeast Asia somewhere. It's it's 3 things you'll never hear is you can't smoke here, and please keep your voice down. It's something else something about booze. I can't remember, but it's everywhere was like that here, where it's just cigarettes didn't bother anybody because everyone smoked. The front man was just smoking a cigarette. But if you're me or Gramps, who don't really just sit and smoke actual cigarettes, it's you would leave with a cold basically for a while, because you're just oh God.
I wonder if that's why so many singers back in the day ended up smoking cigarettes. To your point, is because it's well, if you can't beat them, join them, and so this is the only way I'm going to be able to handle this when I do get to the venue.
That's an amazing amount of forethought. I just think it was more a what? It'd be you don't. What do you mean you don't drink water? You don't smoke cigarettes? Everybody does. They come.
Yeah, that's true.
A Happy Meal back then came with a hamburger, a cup of black coffee, and a Lucky Strike.
Yeah.
Well, for 1 straw penny.
I wonder what the last year was in America where at least 50% of adult males smoked tobacco.
I mean, it wasn't until maybe after the 80s, 89. Maybe it was the early 90s when I remember them getting real serious about it.
That does seem like just the type of fun that Reagan would ruin.
Yeah.
While simultaneously, telling you that he wants the government out of your wallet and out of your bedroom.
Yeah, everybody. That was like a Bill Burr thing when he was just like everybody was just bought that whole like let's deregulate everything deal.
Oh yeah,
it's like, oh, you don't want the government telling you how to run your tow truck business or your job at someone else's tow truck business, do you? And all it did was just make it completely legal for everyone else to just fuck you right in the ear. That's what we were talking about earlier too, with some of these like weird like tax things where it's like, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, but so the people, like taxing unrealized gains on stock stuff, it's just going to ruin everyone's 401k, and everyone who they're going after with that will just find a way right out of it and just be like, it won't even matter.
I find it funny too when Republicans bitch about regulations over here on businesses, and then at the same time, if you start bringing up like, global climate change or global emissions, those will be the first ones like, well, I mean, China and India are the ones doing they're the ones, polluting all the shit because, not obviously
because they actually have no regulations.
Because they have no regulations at all, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna bitch about that because it serves my purpose right now, but I absolutely still want somebody, that doesn't have money on the other side of the world to make that fucking TV so I can punch somebody in the face over it for $199 on Black Friday.
Oh yeah. Well, also they don't. It's like all the jobs are leaving America, and it's like, yeah, because it used to be you couldn't do that. You couldn't just outsource everything to like a cheaper country that is just absolutely like fucked up and ruined by living in the exact situation you somehow think you want to live in here, where there's absolutely no rules about what you can do in a business whatsoever. It's like. Well, okay, like the jobs were here literally right up until we were like, you know what you could just do? Just have someone in China do it for like pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, where did all the job opportunities go and all the manufacturing? It's like, we deregulated all of it like you wanted, and now it went over there.
Well, that's what I find funny is like the place making the most shit with the most deregulation is like what any person on the right would tell you is like, just a communist hellhole.
Yeah, just our like playground for like absolutely smash and grab. Like, oh well, it doesn't matter. I'm making money right now, and no one's stopping me. And the sad thing is too is if we cut all that stuff off, it would be a long time before things got better here. It would at first just fuck everything up. Be like, okay, you cannot do this anymore. No. It'd be like, well, now. Everything would just like hyper and like the price of things would just go like way the fuck up, and then like because it's like, well, now we have to hire people here where we have like standards of human rights, kind of, at least in some of the states. It's like now it costs like a fortune. Although there's a lot of things too that are like it would eventually kind of right itself, but like because it'd be like, well, the supply and demand thing would just work itself out, and America is like a huge country or whatever. It's just the idea that like you start any kind of business at all and you're immediately like driving a $200,000 car because you figured out how to make everything in China. Like, I don't know anybody like that, but it suddenly becomes like way bigger than was ever going to happen if you actually had to like figure out a way to manufacture all that shit here. It might even be untenable. It might even be like, it never really got past that.
Yeah.
Like I had to figure out maybe like a slightly different way to make money, but it's just like, I think, you could trace a lot of like, how come the CEOs now make 500 million times as much as the employees on the ground floor or whatever. And it's like, well, because like they don't have to pay them to make the stuff, and they don't have to, the Henry Ford, who was not a great guy, but what did make the point where he paid his employees enough to be able to buy his cars. And that was like part of all of that mid-century American like prosperity. 'Cause it's like, well, the people making all the money made a lot of money, but it's like everyone else made it too because they were actually involved in what was going on instead of like it just all magically comes from somewhere else. Like, and even China outsourced the at least in not completely across the board, but the quality of life has gone way up for a lot of people in China more than it was. And it's like, so now everything's getting more expensive there too. So they you order something made in China and they just have like North Korean prison camps make it for even less and just kick that back up the chain and take their cut or whatever.
I'll say this, the last couple of days too, as all this other shit's been happening that we're probably still gonna like dive into here is, there's some major banks in China that are collapsing right now. Several of them, and that too, I'm wondering like what ramifications that's going to have too. But
I think that like we're gonna do what we always do, and we're just gonna go. It's probably for China bad, but we're just gonna go somewhere like right now. Like it's cheaper to get things manufactured in Mexico.
Yeah,
but so many people already have these like supply chains to China that they just kind of are hanging on to it. But eventually, it's gonna have to reorganize itself, where it's like we can't really just do this China thing anymore. Like it's not making us the money that it was, and it's all this stuff has gone wrong there, and it's like so we're just gonna switch over to Mexico, which is probably gonna be really good for Mexico for like a while, but then maybe some of the same shit will happen where it's just like, well, yeah, you're only worth anything to us as long as everything stays shitty enough where you make everything cheaper.
Yeah,
and then the
freight shipping will be cheaper.
You don't have to go all the way around the world, and there was a time, and you probably are privy to this, but it's like I worked at a guitar store for a while, and there like all the different kinds of like Fender got made in different places. Like the ones in the U.S. were the most expensive, and the ones from Mexico were actually like cheaper but really really nice. And then the ones that came from like Asia were the ones that were kind of like the first act. They're like these ones are all right, but the quality control, it's like you can get lucky and get a really nice one.
Yeah.
But the Mexi Strats were like actually really nice, but they were like $400 cheaper than the American ones or whatever. And it's like there was like whenever this was going on, it was like there was a higher standard of, maybe it still works like that, I have no idea, but it was always kind of like this weird chain of, so if we like had to go to Mexico, like the quality of things would get a little less Temu-y perhaps. You know what I mean?
And a lot of it too is I don't think you're right about the Mexican Strats. They're usually pretty good, but also too is like the big difference is probably just maybe a slightly cheaper type of wood, and that's one of those things where like I don't know how much.
Yeah,
I don't know. People will argue on the internet, and I think there is something to be said of like certain woods. Maple is certainly like very loud, but there's it's a lot of like boring minutia that like I don't know. Is it worth an extra $400? I don't know.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of diminishing returns on a lot of things. I think on guitars is where I learned about that. Because it's like, is a $5,000 guitar $2,000 better than a $3,000 guitar? And it's like probably mostly not.
No.
Except for just certain things, or if you want something a certain way or whatever. Or it's like a Warwick bass or something. It's like, well, those are nicer because like they're made of all the way through out of this really nice wood or whatever. But it gets to a certain point where it's like is the $10,000 one really any better? It's like, no, you're just wasting money on all this. Like, it was like, ooh, the fretboard's made out of a rare like handmade, and
that's the only time I've ever really went all out on one specifically was a custom, and that's the only reason why. Like, if you're getting something custom where it's like I want it this way because I want it this way, and they have to make new templates, whatever else, then I get it. But other than that, like, I don't know.
Those I think Turf's from SMB's space guitar that he had made by PRS. But that was the other thing. We were like homies with the guy at the custom shop, and we were like a sponsored band just because he was like a fan, and we like played with James, played with his band in like Baltimore once. Yeah. And it's like they opened for us because Dog Fashion Disco is like from Baltimore. He was like just into all that kind of crazy stuff, and like whatever it was, and we just got to be kind of chummy. He's still like a big director there of something now, because it's been years. But yeah, I mean, Turf had to like find his own materials and say, because like he wanted the pick guard to be mirrored, so he like found this company that would sell, and he had to buy it almost like wholesale, so it was like kind of wasteful, but it was like the only way he could get a hold of this like reflective plexi something that would both be mirrored and work as a pick guard. And so Turf's PRS thing, it was just the stock of it was a really nice guitar, like a nice PRS, but then the paint job was sparkly silver, and it had a Chaos pad, like a light up MIDI controller thing right under the fretboard, and it had like an actual MIDI out along with the audio out on it and stuff, and so it was like this light up thing that could control the effects on his Axe effects. So it's like he'd like hit a thing and then have it set to like there's like a pitch bending. So you're like, and like if you went the other way, it made the delay turn on and then off and stuff, and like he would just do all these.
It was
weird
kind of
things.
neat, actually.
It was pretty cool, and it's like we think they told us like how much that would have cost if it wasn't a bit of a sweetheart deal, where we kind of worked with him on it and sourced some of the materials. That would have been something like $17,000 or something like that. It was
five figures.
Woo!
Sure.
Yeah, it was up past 10. That was like 4. I don't remember quite what it was. It might have been more like 10 or 11, but that was in 2008 or $9. So that was actually like now it probably would have
20.
been. Yeah, probably. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, your money's going somewhere when you're doing that. When you have a dream, you can. But yeah, if you're buying it off the shelf, anyway.
Speaking of fans, Donald Trump has a fan.
Yeah,
he's got quite a fan.
He has a fan base, and that's. I was saying earlier that I don't. Look, like. The only reason that I don't like him is because I actually know everything about him and what he does, And by the way, not everyone. If you've been living under a rock, Donald Trump was the president of the United States for 4 years, or ending in 2021, and he's a little bit divisive. He's the guy on the right there, and let's see, and I think he was a little younger there. I think this is a more recent pic. Yeah, there he looks a little bit more. This is him. That's Jeffrey Epstein, and that's one of my favorite people ever, Ghislaine Maxwell, and they're child sex traffickers that he hangs out with a lot, and apparently
the name did ring a bell.
Yeah, so recently a guy. Well, let me back up here. So anyway, I was reminding another friend that he rose to prominence not because he had all these great policy ideas, but because your uncle didn't like there being a black president. But they felt afraid to say it. So, you'd ask your uncle at whatever Thanksgiving was getting ruined why he was complaining about Obama so much. They'd say things like, well, he did this policy where, ammunition for guns used to last basically forever, but now it goes bad after 5 years, so you have to buy more. And that didn't make any sense. And as a guy with a lot of guns, that's not true even a little, and is just totally insane. But okay. Well, he didn't really do that. It's well, he's a Democrat. And it's yeah, but I don't really remember you complaining about Bill Clinton like this, here and again. Yeah. You complained about Obama pretty much the whole time that we were over at Grandma's house. You really don't like that guy. He's well, it's just, and then Donald Trump came and went, he's from Kenya, and that's, you're not supposed to be able to do that. And everyone's uncle went, that's what was on the tip of my tongue. He was... Before he was president, he lived in Kenya, and you have to be an American. So yeah, he's just not American. That's right, everybody. Yeah. It's not because he's it's not because he's not qualified for the job. He's foreign, and we can't have it. Which wasn't true at all either. But everybody finally found a way to not just go, I hate him because he's black. And that was a smart move of Donald Trump. It's look what you did. You gave everybody an excuse to be a jerk and hide it. Kind of whenever you would fly on the Lolita Express, they wouldn't publish your name up until recently. You weren't being a jerk out loud.
It would still kind of be nice to see the little black book.
I think more that did come up. One of my favorite thing that Trump just said recently was that he would rather not have any of the names in there published because that could cause a lot of trouble for people or something like that. And someone made a Simpsons meme or something. It was just Bart going what an odd thing to say unprompted. I don't know why you would do that, because see, a lot of your fan base is they have bumper stickers and hats and things of your name and face, which is weird. And then which is, by the way, again, that had never happened for I tend to vote blue. But if there was a Democratic, candidate running, and everyone was wearing T-shirts of them, but with ripped muscles, holding a bazooka, and had flags of them hanging off their truck everywhere they went, I'd be maybe I'm gonna sit this one out. I don't think I like this guy too much. And then if they were just the Republican was like John McCain or something, but you know what? I might actually just vote for him this time. See, I'm not one of those entrenched guys. I just have to move through the world as an informed person, knowing what I'm looking at.
You know who could make a T-shirt with himself shirtless and ripped?
Who?
Kennedy.
I would be now I'm truly, I would, what would be hilarious is if a cult propped up around a third-party candidate. That would have been kind of interesting. And, everybody that says Donald Trump is an outsider, it's I don't think you run with the Republican, as a Republican ticket if you're an outsider. They're not exactly the people that like to shake things up. And that's the thing. I never believed any of that because none of that was ever true. He was never some guy. I wish this camera wouldn't go out of focus for no reason like that. But it was doing that whole thing where he's I'm somebody that kind of wants to get all of the corrupt business out of Washington and then just like did corrupt business that made his kids and stuff all this money and then just didn't do anything.
See, I think
it's hard to get excited about that as a voter.
Yeah, I think in fairness to Trump, one of the things that he saw coming a mile away the first time was there's all these people in the Congress and the Senate that are basically just running roughshod over the emoluments clause and using their, place in Congress to make money that they probably shouldn't be making on different things. And I think Trump looked at it like, wait a minute, I've already spent my whole career doing that exact thing, only without
being president.
Without having this like cloak of I don't want to say invisibility, but sort of like you're shielded a little bit now. You know
right.
I mean?
They just voted for like you now can just do whatever you want, like as
I think he was basically a billionaire that kind of was like, wait a minute, I'm really good at doing this exact corrupt thing already, and if I get into this position, watch me show these fools how it's done in terms of just making money.
I mean, and I'm not gonna high road anybody here because like the minute like I'm in local, basically neighborhood politics, which is as low as it could possibly get on the rung, but still get to decide where money goes and stuff with things, and it's been positive, and I've been kind of involved in stuff, and I've gotten to know our city council person, who I really do believe would, if she took a run at being mayor of Minneapolis, would probably win and would be like a really good choice to do that. But also like the closer it starts seeming like that's happening, the more I'm just going to be hanging around that. I'll do a little work for free. Just the minute I could become corrupt somehow through like whatever level of politics, I absolutely will. Yeah. Like absolutely. As soon as they're like, John, could probably help with this, and it's like then someone's like, I want to build this housing thing here, and I'm like, well, I'd love to put my name on that, but I think, and they'd be like, here's your briefcase. I'm like, thank you. Then this is happening now. Cool. I'm not above that. It's like the first fucking thing I would do, and I'm not even afraid to put it on this podcast because, like, I'm literally never going to be someone that you have to vote for. Like, I'm just going to be a creep that hangs around like Rudy Giuliani or something. Like, that's how you do it.
Well, yeah, that's people bitch all the time about like unelected bureaucrats in government, and it's like that is literally the dream that everyone wants to be. Why are we mad about it? It's like, why would I want to be the person in government that's like held accountable to fucking anybody? The whole point of being in the government is to be unelected and unmovable.
Yeah, you don't want to. You're going to maybe lose your job once every 4 years. Like nobody wants that.
No.
The problem is there's a lot of people out there that kind of don't get it. Like that you can either be rich or you can either have someone throwing a parade for you, but you can't have both. Yeah. Like you're like, oh, I own all this real estate, and people are like, we hate landlords, and you're like, well, this sucks. I'm like, no. See, you get to buy cocaine and hookers and fly to other countries and stuff. All the other people just have to like go to work and have their life suck. But they might say something people agree with. Every once in a while, maybe they'll throw them a parade. Maybe they'll make a cool record or whatever. You get the money.
Yep.
And then you probably should just like stay off of the internet and just go enjoy what money buys you. It's like the internet is for poor people because you're sitting on this like ratty couch after working for like 20 hours a day, and you go on the internet to forget about that. Yep. And that's what you do. You actually go get to have fun. But Trump was like, I would like the money and the parade, please, and somehow he got it, but he got it by being really divisive. So every once in a while you get shot at.
Well, and I have a couple of theories on what happened yesterday that I'd like to run by you, and one of them you might have to talk me off a ledge on one of them, because I do have, and I want to be very clear about delineating between the two. Is like anybody who just got online and made a joke about I don't give a shit about that. That whatever. That's America. But I didn't love the way the media treated this yesterday because one of the first articles that I saw from the Associated Press said Trump claims he was shot at rally. Now, whether or not it was a piece of the bullet or a piece of glass, whatever.
I think it was the shattered teleprompter, just from the scratches across his face. That's not a bullet.
And I'm sure we'll find out at some point the details of that. But to me, it was just like, wait a minute, this is why people don't like the fucking media.
Well, yeah,
we heard the gunshots.
Mm-hmm.
We saw his face turn into a fucking blood orange, I guess.
Yeah.
And then
good caption for all those pictures people keep putting up. The blood orange.
Then two people like died. So it's like, my only bitch was, again, people on the internet saying whatever. I don't give a shit about that. But the media is like, you're literally saying that he claims he was shot as if we all didn't just watch all these bullets go flying around and he said he got shot, but I don't know.
Look, he says a lot of things, everybody. So maybe, we watched it fucking happen. Yeah, and I do hate that.
That was my fucking gripe with the media, though. Was not, again, it's like if somebody makes a joke about it or a meme, like I've seen some memes that are fucking hysterical. And
it's not our job to be accurate when we're just posting horseshit on the internet to make people mad. Like, we're not the media.
And by the way, shout out to comedian Shane Gillis too, because
I didn't see that one.
Well, he had said months ago, he had a whole bit that actually was hilarious, that he said, look, I don't care whether you like or hate Trump. And I'm paraphrasing, I'm not going to do his bit.
Right.
But basically the crux of the joke was that we all have to agree that Trump would be the funniest president to get shot. And boy, was he right.
Wow.
Boy, was he right. Because it's just, the way he like jumped up and like was fucking holding his fist up, I was like, this is like a fucking bad movie scene from like a bad 80s movie. I don't know what the deal is, but
it also reminds me of that Stephen King movie starring Christopher Walken, The Dead Zone, where except for the main character can see the future and does see that this guy running for governor eventually becomes president and causes World War III, and he tries to shoot him and misses, but they get a picture of him holding up a baby as a human shield. That wouldn't end Trump's career, though. See, that's the thing. You actually have to, if you're going to do that, you gotta actually hit him. Now, I'm not saying that assassinating political people is a good thing to do. However, we do 100% know who did this, and he was like a weird, like 20-year-old basement. He looked like a mass shooter anyway. He was going to shoot somebody sooner or later. Yeah. But he was one of those Republican, guys that has something about Jesus in his Twitter handle, and then is like, I'm trying to stop the influence of Jeffrey Epstein or whatever. Did you see that? Whatever that was, it was like his whole bio was like, I'm a Republican guy, and I'm a Jesus guy, and I hate these pedos and stuff. And I think, Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, is this guy right here next to Donald Trump. And he had a big sex trafficking ring. And this isn't someone else's hand there. And I think there are people sort of within. There's like normal conservative people out there.
Pull that picture back up.
Let's see. That's another one. There he is again, but that's a different. He has a different colored tie. That's a different event that he was at. But one of them was this one.
I was just trying to figure out which is the guy that almost got killed and which guy is the guy that definitely didn't kill himself.
Okay, this is the guy they found hanging in prison after the cameras turned off for a little while.
The guards fell asleep.
The guards fell asleep. But this way, the guards also kind of fell asleep. It caused this guy right here to almost get shot by someone who normally would vote for him. But apparently him hanging out with this guy right here was a little bit too much for that guy.
Well,
and I don't know. It's like, is that some weird constructed thing? If so, they did it awfully fast. I think that probably is the case.
Let me give you my two conspiracies here, because one that I find interesting is that the last podcast you and I did was about dead internet theory, and one thing that really struck me about this one was if the Associated Press is all saying this guy's the shooter, I believe that. I mean, there obviously were gross pictures on Reddit of his head fucking blown off.
And he's definitely
right away
wearing a t-shirt from kind of a right-leaning gun like YouTube thing or whatever. I don't think they're like the worst thing out of all those or whatever. But I'll give him that. But he was definitely like not a fucking like communist Antifa.
Yeah. Well, but this is where it gets into the dead internet.
He wasn't a 500-pound non-binary woman with green hair, which, by the way, that would have been hilarious. Like, just gets all the way up onto a roof. Like fucking the day after, she posted something about how her doctor is a misogynist because he says her knee problems come from weighing 500 pounds, and that just means that he's a jerk. And then she climbs a building, and it's like, he must have been wrong. Yeah. Look how spry this human wrecking ball is.
But my thing with this kid, though, is like, one, immediately, we are now, I mean, we already have been for a while, but obviously this is the first, regardless of what happened, or I'm sure we agree, this is probably like the closest thing we've had to a real assassination attempt
in a while.
And certainly, like we were talking before off the show, that like people don't realize, like, this kind of shit has happened actually way more than people think.
It happens all the time. Yeah. Like, there's always like people are just crawling to get into these things and shoot at whoever. Like there's like on the record, there's like 8 when Obama was president that they just got a hold of him before they even got in there. But I mean, even we were talking about this, John Wilkes Booth, who shot Abraham Lincoln, was planning on trying to like James Bond like beat up the fucking guard outside of the thing or whatever. But the guard just so happened to be like, oh, there's so many there's a lot of military, northern military presence at this thing. He's like, I'm a little like more comfortable, so I got to go take a whiz, even though I probably, you probably shouldn't have been doing that until he got relieved, by someone else. But, and John Wilkes Booth was just like, oh, I don't have to try to fight this guy. I could just go shoot Abraham Lincoln. And by the way, if he had to fight that guy, he probably would have absolutely gotten his ass handed to him. So he just wouldn't have gotten shot. So that guy leaving. So there's just like basically there's a million guys beating up a million John Wilkes Booths at these things. It's just all the time. Former presidents. Although I think this is like also, Donald Trump is the only president that's had like an active firing gun, an active attempt to assassinate him while he wasn't president. like nobody went back and shot at Reagan in like 1993. Yeah. Like no one's ever been so just unpleasantly divisive. And by the way, who calls for like stuff like this to happen to the other side all the time and then like got shot at by a guy kind of closer to his team, even though, again, probably one of those people who's like, I want the Conservative Party to go back to normal. And you know what? It probably should. They weren't really so bad when they weren't a bizarre religious cult. That did not start with Trump, though. That definitely, in the Reagan era, that's when the evangelicals kind of started infesting. Yep. Like, I would have probably voted for like a 70s Republican. I don't know. I think I like his tax platform. You know what I mean? It just, not all of the same stuff was at stake. Yep. Which, again, everybody who sometimes texts me after this, like, it's not like I'm just like, oh, I just planted my flag on this side and I'm staying there. I'm like, dude, I don't want evangelical Christians to be able to just do whatever they want in this country. And they've been working on it forever. And they keep telling everybody that that's not what they're doing, even though they routinely publish books and things about what they want to do. Like everyone's like, Project 2025. No, you guys are crazy. It's like, well, here's what it says it's going to do. And everyone's like, well, yeah, that's what... But they don't always deliver on their promises. It's like, okay, so you want all this stuff to happen, and you're telling me to not worry about it or yell at you because, oh, well, I mean, what are the odds even half of it will end up,
Hold that thought for a second. I got to take a leak, and I apologize.
Please do. I will hold this thought in a holding pattern. Actually, I can pause this, I think. I hope I don't fuck it up. No, I'm not going to pause it. I'm just going to keep yelling. So I do have to get my story straight here and everything where, like, again, they've done an interestingly good job. No, I have to tell this to Chris. I am actually going to pause this. I'm going to pause the recording and restart it. And go. And we're back. I just had this so I could do that. God damn this thing. Focus. I know that I have trouble focusing, but this camera shouldn't. I don't know whether or not maybe the lens is just really dirty or if perhaps I've now had this goofy webcam for like several years and it may just need replacing.
Yeah,
like, I don't really know. But I was God, what the fuck did I say like right as you were leaving? See, now I don't remember. It's gonna be hilarious because like I was like, we
were talking about 2025 and how the Christian right is essentially like keeps saying they're not trying to do all the stuff that they keep constantly doing.
Oh, right, yeah, and then everybody's thing was just like, oh, they're not gonna like, but they're not like really gonna do it, and they've successfully like now when you bring it up, they just do that thing where they make you sound crazy. Which, by the way, here's what I wanted to say: it's that I'm impressed by both how quickly and how bad of a job they're doing with the propaganda to try to dismiss it. It's like I've never actually seen like the stuff with, and we won't get off onto a thing in this, but like the stuff with Israel, like they actually did like a really weirdly amazing job of like, well, you're just a racist if you think them exterminating an entire other people is bad somehow. It was weird how effective that was. It was crazy. They didn't really mean it. But then again, they're this thing propped up by trillions of US dollars. And it's like,
there's a lot of lobbyist money there.
Yeah, more than any of this stuff could ever possibly be. But then, this thing is like, their whole thing is like, what? You're crazy. It's like they're just kind of making it seem like when you bring it up, there's this whole memetic thing going around that just says like, under Project 2025, like, you're not going to be able to visit your grandma on her birthday anymore. It's like, but it's like, people forget that you know, a lot of that stuff in 2016 was all definitely AstroTurf propaganda, but they were just like, it's jokes. And it just dovetailed into this thing. It's like, oh, what? Can't you take a joke? And then some people kind of fucked up because then they're like, no, we can't. And blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, don't do that, because now no one's going to listen to you ever again. Like, don't be like, you can't, you saying this Shane Gillisy thing on a comedy stage is now you being part of Cambridge Analytica's like assault on. No, that's not the same thing. It's, you know, making fun of things is necessary and okay. But like the real trick is when you notice that it isn't funny. Like that's like a huge thing. Like a friend of mine who she is actually of Palestinian descent, but she's one of those people that's just like, oh, if it wasn't Joe Biden, none of this would have happened. I'm like, you're taking the wrong thing away from this situation. But like this would have been happening literally no matter what. Maybe it would have been worse, but the more likely it would just be the exact same. They'd just be doing the exact same shit and we'd be doing the exact same nothing about it. Yeah. That's just how it's been since 1946. Whatever. But so she sent me this thing. She said, well, now we're going to make fun of Biden. So it's like this weird, really long video clip. I didn't save it to show on here because it's just agonizing. Where I think it was from Succession, and this guy's like, you need to vote for me, and everyone's like, no, and it's like, come on, everybody, and the little thing saying, like, Biden floating under him, like, so what I responded back to her was just like, well, this does feel a lot more like Facebook internet propaganda than like an actual joke, and I'm only saying that because it's not funny, but I will give you that I think we could both agree that it was long. And then she just never responded to me. And I'm like, people always, there's a built-in reactionary knee-jerk thing to that too, which I can't stand, which everybody goes, well, just because you love Biden, you don't, it's just that, it's like watching a Calvin thing pee on a Chevy. I've never owned a Chevy, and that isn't funny. Like, I don't have an opinion about this fucking car. Like, even if I had a Ford, or, you know, it's like, I used to just drive Priuses, and everyone made fun of those, and I was like, okay. Like, but I'm not actually trying to save the environment. I just found out a way to get these for cheap and then maintain them for super cheap, and like nothing ever breaks on them. Yeah. Not impressing anybody with it. It's like, oh, well, you know, some people do, and I'm like, do they though? I don't. This is just stupid. It's clearly oil company propaganda.
Yeah, I remember your.
Now I drive a Mini. Now I drive an extremely ungas fucking good car with turbochargers.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure your Prius. I remember the 60 miles of the gallon being kind of nice.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome, but I'm doing a little better now, and it's frankly irresponsible of me to try to get better gas mileage. Like, I don't know. Like, but anyway, there's so much of that going around, and a lot of it is, so you just, okay, if you're smart, and I know you want to pretend you are, a real safe bet is to just, whichever way John and Chris are going, maybe like, maybe go ahead and align yourself with that, because you start to be able to see through all this stuff, and you're like, dude, when stuff is funny, it's funny, even if it's political. Yeah. Like, it's that's just kind of arbitrarily, like, you know, it's funny no matter what. When it's funny and it's not political, you're like, okay, this is funny. And then when it's funny, not funny and not political, it's just like an episode of The Big Bang Theory or something. It's like, well, this is just like on no one tried very hard, and it's just stupid. Like, if you remove the laugh track, it's really uncomfortable to watch. Like, it's this whole thing. But if it's like super political and about a real specific thing that you notice the person telling you is way into, and then they're just putting out like things that are, it's just supposed to be funny, and it doesn't make any sense on its own, it's propaganda. Yeah. Like, that's what it is. That's it. Like, even if it's like, if someone's saying something about Trump and it's like completely stupid, it's just probably be coming from, you know, it's like, he blah, blah, blah. And you're like, yeah, it's like, I don't like him either, but this is dumb. This is clearly just propaganda coming from the other direction. Like, I know what it is. I don't care about him enough to get all fired up about this. Like, I don't give a shit. Yeah. Like, when we talk about him shitting his pants, that's hilarious because he really does. Yeah. But we only did it for one episode, and for most of it, we talked about Vince McMahon shitting on other people's faces, which is way funnier. And I really don't have much of a stake in wrestling. Well, so it's just funny because pooping on people is funny.
Yeah, and in fairness, too, I mean, it was good that we talked more about Vince McMahon because, I mean,
well, there was more there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The presidential candidate's pooping his pants. We're pretty sure that happened, but nobody's like actually found the diaper. But like, when he shit on that girl's head during a threesome, it's like, that happened.
Yeah, there's like video of it, and yeah, if Trump did shit his pants at all of these things to the point where other people could smell it, it's literally my favorite thing he's ever done. Like, I'm not really being mean to him about it so much as like, finally, a reason I can understand why people vote for this guy. Yeah. Like, he's like, oh, he shits his pants and just doesn't do anything about it.
Well, in fairness, when he was in court, I
That's
mean,
awesome.
A guy that looks like that, there's no way you can ask him to go 8 hours without taking a dump.
No, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not just going to recess for you every 20 minutes to go squirt out a fucking burrito bowl.
Yeah, but if he didn't eat McDonald's for every meal, which by the way is very funny, like that's a real thing about him. It's like, and of course you can't do that at almost 80 years old, which by the way he is.
There's tons of Diet Coke too.
Yeah, just Diet Coke and McDonald's. You're just gonna shit your pants at that age. That's just plain old boring science. Like, you're just like, oh yeah, of course. Like, whatever. It's like it's not even really that. The fact that he eats that much McDonald's is way funnier than him shitting his pants. Like, that, it's just that anybody would do that, especially someone in like the public eye that's just like, I'm a really handsome guy and like exercise is bad for you and I just eat McDonald's all the time. Like, that's so delightfully insane. That then also he shits his pants. Like, well, obviously, who cares? Like, that's what would happen to me if I did that. You know.
So, I have 2 theories about what happened yesterday.
Okay.
The first one, which I don't think is what happened.
But you're going to power through it anyway.
But I'm going to power through it anyway is, you know, I think it would be kind of ironic, because what really struck me was the fact that, okay, if this kid is a Republican, whatever, registered, which I thought of you immediately too, because as I started, like, and I don't care like what my friends or like people put on Facebook, whatever, but in that moment I decided to go look on like Facebook, like going to like Fox News's Facebook page. And looking at the comments there just to see. First off, dead internet is alive and well.
Oh boy, the bots are earning their keep today.
Oh my god, the amount of people that were just having these really nuanced opinions, and then you click on their page and it's like, you've made 0 posts and your page started yesterday. Like, just tons of that. But what I thought was crazy is the 2025 project. I don't know if you saw the tweet that Trump put out like a week ago, sort of disavowing it or whatever. Now,
yeah,
yes, but
that's actually
I'm with you.
Just a smart move of him to do that.
I'm with you, but hear me out on this. This is what I thought was weird about it is if Trump would have put out a tweet that just said, I don't know about 2025, not really sure what they're about, you know, wish them the best, whatever. That I would have totally bought as him being political of like, oh, I'm trying to distance myself, but when I get in, I'm going to actually just fucking rail against, or, you know, do all this stuff that's in this 2025 book. But what was interesting about the tweet, and I'm not saying this in the way that I think Donald Trump was like smart about this, because I don't think that's not what I'm getting at, but he did put in the tweet that he said, some of the stuff in Project 2025 I disagree with, and other stuff I find downright, it was like absurd and disgusting or something like that.
Interesting.
What's interesting to me about that, and this is like getting to my theory about what happened yesterday, is he also, which is a little bit of a misnomer too, because he is kind of the guy that took down Roe v. Wade, but he also has publicly said that like kind of his position is like a 16-week ban. Or like anything after 16 weeks, with exception for rape and incest or health of the mother.
Yeah, which is like 4 months, which is like
fairly moderate. They said it was basically the same position that Bill Clinton put out.
Yeah, right? It's not actually that wide, because like there is a certain point where it's like, I understand that these things can take time, and also everyone's making it harder to do, which is a little bit of a trick.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak too deeply on like that issue without like knowing the medical minutia behind it, but just point being is like, I get it in certain states when it's like they say a 6-week ban, it's like, well, maybe you don't even know you're pregnant yet.
That's the problem.
4 months you probably do, but whatever. But what I thought was, when you go out and say Project 25 is, you know, abysmal and disgusting, now you've kind of gone on the record to where if you start doing a bunch of the shit that they're talking about when you're president, you're going to get called out on. I'm not saying he's going to give a shit.
Well, we'll be done with elections after that anyway, so I guess that doesn't matter.
But what would be interesting to me, because I was also trying to square the idea of like, wait a minute, is this like they're saying this kid's a registered Republican and he's wearing a T-shirt from like a YouTube channel that's heavily gun related. But then there was also people posting that they found records that he had donated to Act Blue or whatever.
Yeah, which was also. By the way, like that, there's a bit of a asterisk to that actually being true at all.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Kind of everybody from each side is saying that the Republican voter registry was photoshopped and that the other thing was photoshopped and blah blah blah. But wouldn't it be interesting if, because this kid's a Republican, if actually this whole thing wasn't staged, but it was from the Heritage Foundation?
Right,
like basically, they saw Trump's tweet and were like, "Well, wait a minute."
That is the best conspiracy theory, by the way, that you're about to do right now.
Yeah, because think about if you take him out, what's going to happen if you're the Heritage Foundation? One, all of the people that were going to vote for him or vote for the type of shit that like Project 2025 are going to be emboldened. They're all going to be riled up now at this point. It's going to be, I'm not saying it would spark a civil war. It might be kind of right on teetering on the brink of that, but you'll rile all of those people up while at the same time maybe removing the one thing that's in your way. And he hasn't announced his VP yet, which means
that's also interesting. I really
you could
wondered.
Potentially really we could just plug in whoever now.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the thing of it is like, I don't buy, getting back to the 20, is like, I don't buy that Trump didn't know anything about it. That's just pure unadulterated bullshit.
There's a lot of things where he very clearly is just, it's more like, I think, because Trump, like, here's what the only reason I don't believe him when he goes, I hate all this stuff. He knows who
the Heritage Foundation guy is. They've met.
Yeah, and also, he doesn't actually care about anything. So him going, this is vile and disgusting, is weirdly out of character. Like, when he's trying to get away from something, it's usually like, I don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is. And, well, I won't bring the pictures up again and do that again. I was about to. But yeah, it's like, okay, but that's his thing. His thing is always like, he has a thing. He's like, well, I don't know. Which is, like, actually usually a better defense because you're not picking anything when you do that. You're just going, It's like, I've never met this guy. I've never heard of this. I don't remember. That's what you're supposed to say when you're on trial. Yeah. It's like, I don't recall, which he did a lot. And everyone's like, oh, was your memory going? And it's like, no, but like, if I got pinched for like, someone like tried to carjack me and I blew their head off or something, but I decided I didn't want to do the right thing and just go to the cops and turn myself in. I'll just make them come get me. Like, well, where were you? It's like, I don't remember. It was a few days ago. I don't know. That's what you're supposed to do. Yep. Your lawyer will just tell you to be like, don't sit there going, well, I was over there. Like, no. Just, you've chosen column B, which is to try to just completely get away with this. And then in that column, you definitely want to just like, I don't know. Not even like a lie, like, no, I was over here. No, where were you? I don't recall. How do you not recall? It's like, well, where were you 3 days ago? Like at work? I mean, that's not a real answer. That's where everybody was. Yeah. But anyhow, he knows that because he's been fucking like in trouble for fraud and all this other shit for like his entire adult life. So yeah, he just says, I don't know. It's weird. Actively weird that his denial of this, and they're in a I'll scratch your back. Of course he's not going to enact any of these policies. He's just going to be like, well, these people have been just giving me money and helping me do stuff, so I'm just going to let them do whatever they want, which is what he did last time. Yep. He just let other people do whatever they wanted. That was the problem. He doesn't have... It's like he just tried to figure out how to make himself more money, and then as far as all the other shit went, he was just like, and you all just, I don't understand, I don't care, do whatever you feel like, which is insane, but... Yep. Whatever. But that's his MO. We know this guy now. Like, he's an old pal that tends to ruin the neighborhood get-togethers. But I mean, like, we get what he's gonna do. He's gonna show up and shit his pants and steal all the hamburgers. Yeah. Like, that's okay. That's what he does. Yep. And this was like doing the opposite of that. He just showed up and didn't have a single hamburger. And it's like, what is happening here? Yeah. That's not like this guy.
Yeah, I just wonder if maybe in Trump's first administration, there really were no guardrails and all these people were doing all this crazy shit behind the scenes because, to your point, he kind of was just, it was chaos.
Yeah, he doesn't give a flying fuck about whatever happens as long as it works out for him.
But what if the Heritage Foundation was putting all this money behind him and then kind of banking on that same thing in the second term of, it'll be fine, because once he gets in there, he's just going to do whatever he does.
Yeah, he'll rubber stamp anything that we just, who gives a fuck? Like, here you go.
And then what if they were like, well, wait a minute, now he kind of looks like he's not going to rubber stamp all that, and we put a bunch of money into it, so what if we just, like, I don't know, did this thing where we rile up all the people we're trying to rile up while also getting the one guy out of the way that might be a problem now.
I just don't. By the way, I want to sidetrack for 1 second because people are like, the Biden administration ordered a hit, like, because, you know, the thing just happened where any official presidential thing you can't go to jail for. But, like, if that was true, then why didn't they just drone strike him and be like, yep, it was official presidential business, and then just nothing? You realize that could have happened, so instead of having some pimply fucking, like, virgin just go take a shot at him and miss on a roof.
Which that makes it look like it's not a presidential act.
Yeah, it definitely. I mean? If I was really gonna, if I was Joe Biden or whoever, and I really wanted to do that, I'd be like, yeah, we're just gonna have the same guys who shot Osama bin Laden go down to Mar-a-Lago while he's asleep and blow his head off. Like, why wouldn't you just do that? Like, you know, but if it's this kind of weird organization that's just trying to put on a bit of a show, and they find sort of an easily brainwashable, it's like, he's one of the pedos, like, you can get in that kid's ear, because, you know, maybe SEAL Team 6 doesn't want to go and murder Trump, you know, so maybe they won't, but it's like, you could potentially, if you're like a creepy Christian organization, as if I have to say both of those things, you would just get somebody like how you normally get. You get, you know, like, the evangelicals and the Taliban are the exact same thing, just painted in different colors. And what do? They get suicide bombers who are like weird, creepy virgins and just be like, here, for this cause, like, go and whatever. So this feels more like a thing like that, which is what an organization like that would and be able to do. Yeah. So, that tears it. The only thing I can't figure out is why would he say anything bad about them at all, rather than just going, well, I don't know anything about them, actually being like, these are disgusting. Did they piss him off in some private thing? And he's like, because
I don't know.
He'll talk shit when he's mad at you, for sure. When he's trying not to get in trouble, he says, I don't know what you're talking about, like any good criminal. But when he's mad, like any not as good of a criminal, he's like, all right, well, fine then. I'm just going to say your whole thing sucks, and like, fuck you, and I hate all this stuff. And it's like, when he really has no real opinion, it's like, they must have been like, we're not going to give you as much money, or we're not going to have your back in this whole showing up on all these Epstein list things and whatever. So he's just like, well, they can just go fuck themselves, but I'm going to do what I always do, rather than just telling them to fuck themselves. I'm going to say all the things they're trying to do are bullshit to get my cult to like turn on them, which is interesting because all those people like him because they also like all that other stuff. Which is wild. I guess doing that kind of thing with all of these big Christian groups and cults and crazy people is just a good way to get shot at eventually. Like, I mean, it's probably what would happen to you or I if we were just kind of playing that game and be like, well, these are the kind of people that send like a weirdo to shoot at you. So I don't know.
I was trying to find the actual tweet, but so I could read it. But here we go.
Is he on actual Twitter again?
No,
it was
a truth
patriotism.fart or whatever it's called.
it was a truth stupid page or whatever the hell it is. He said, I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it, even though one of the main guys behind it was his bagman and the other one worked in his administration. I disagree, but this is what was interesting. He said, I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. But then he says, anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them.
What a
weird thing to say.
You know who he said that shit about last time? Ghislaine Maxwell. He's like, I don't know who this is, and it's the things that they're doing sound terrible, but you know what? I wish them well. I wish them well was the big Tim Dillon thing. Yeah. Where it's just, I wish them well, golf swing, you know. Like,
well, he's probably never even met Ghislaine Maxwell, or, you know.
Well, I don't know, because I'm a big fan of hers, and I think, oops, that's the wrong one. There she is right there, a friend of a friend. There is a picture, there is actually more than one picture, and they were those weird web dot things that won't work, but there is a picture where they're just like hanging out right next to each other, and he's wearing yet a third tie, so it was clearly at least at a different
I do kind of love that in that picture, Maxwell looks like she literally wants to like just... I don't know if she wants to fuck or kill Melania or both.
Oh, that is the look of both.
You know what I mean? There. It really seems like it, doesn't it?
By the way, you want to know something funny about this picture? Every single person in this picture wishes they were with someone younger. It keeps getting funnier.
I saw stars. I almost was black.
Yeah, careful there, man. Oh, God, I got to get a little air in there. But
oh, fuck, I'm sorry.
That
was too much.
That's actually pretty funny.
That really was. But yeah, it would make me wonder, though, that I could see the Heritage Foundation. The other problem that I have with people saying that it was Biden, too, and I would imagine you would agree with this, is like, we're kind of back in that boat where it's like every person from both sides of the political spectrum over the last 2 weeks just talked about how this guy can't even put together a sentence. He can't walk down the stairs. He has to wear a diaper.
And he's ordering hits on motherfuckers.
Yeah, he's not functional after 4 p.m. He's saying he needs to go to bed by 8. Yeah, all those, I don't have any issue with that, but it's like, it's the same thing with like, and in fairness, they did this with Trump too, where it's like, you say that he's like this evil, crazy con man, but then also say that he's stupid. And it's like, weirdly, he is kind of both. I get it, but it's like, I feel that way with Biden, though, with this whole thing of like, if he's as inept as everybody is kind of saying that he's been for the last 6 months, it's like, oh, but he also orchestrated like the most, obvious presidential assassination in the last 40 years. Like, I'm not buying that. Which makes me think, in actuality, what this really probably boiled down to was one crazy lunatic that was a lone wolf. It was probably a very serious breakdown in security. And my guess is, if the kid was a Republican, I wonder, too, my third theory is maybe he thought that if I shoot Donald Trump, I'll start this new American revolution. I think he had too many pimples to think that far ahead. My guess, but
it's a little young to play the long game there.
Yeah, I don't know.
But like, I mean, he definitely looked like someone who was like, the Secret Service did him a favor after they shot him. It's like,
but the thing you and I have always talked about with conspiracies is like, the two things is like, who makes money here?
Yep.
And also who just overall who benefits. Who
does this work out for?
Generally, it's monetary, but when we're talking about these particular kind of issues, a lot of times it still becomes monetary, but it's also just political.
Yeah, who does it benefit politically so they can make even more money eventually, or whatever?
Yeah, and it's like, the only thing I can think of is like, this doesn't benefit Democrats. It doesn't benefit Biden. It doesn't benefit... I don't even really know that it benefits Trump, other than the fact that I guess the fact that he lived it, probably he sees that as a benefit.
Well...
But nonetheless, it's like, I'm sitting here and looking at it, is like, the kid's a Republican, and from what I can gather over the last 2 weeks, the thing that has the most to gain would be right-wing lobbyist groups.
Yeah. Like, yeah. That's the thing, like, I have to, because one big thing is everyone's like, well, he's for sure going to win now or whatever, and it's like, I don't actually believe that. I actually think that it's more likely that he'll lose, because now everyone needed to get scared again. Because it's like, the Project 2025 thing is flying around everywhere. Like, people are way more aware of that than they were a while ago. And I think, what is that? Mostly thanks to John Oliver. But, like, additionally, it's like, they have to be afraid of that. Because so many people are just apathetic. They're like, well, whatever. Not voting for Biden. Now they're going to get back to that, like, 2020, like, oh, God, we have to just vote for anybody else. Or whatever. And if it's like, oh, no, he's guaranteed to win now, and oh no, if he does, this will happen. Those two pieces are now very firmly in everyone's mind. Like, literally everyone saying he's going to win no matter what now is the exact right thing to scare everybody into voting for anyone who isn't him. Because nobody still, like, anybody who with any sense isn't like, oh, it'll be better. Like, because literally, like, yeah, the pandemic, like, didn't help anything, but it's like, he also, like, didn't do, even if that didn't happen, it's like, well, he didn't do anything except for just let other people get away with bullshit and, like, whatever, just run around chasing squirrels in the backyard. And that's, it would just be more of that, which isn't like, hell yeah, that's at least something. I'm like, I don't know that that's better. But, everybody needs to kind of be freaked out of him again. So it's like, I actually kind of think that it could go the other way, which, by the way, any kind of, like, political analyst or anyone that might have been, like, secretly plotting this would know. Yeah. But it also just seems like, It just seems like the same reason everything happens in this country is because everyone is incompetent and everyone else has a gun. Yeah, it's just kind of what goes down.
Yeah, well, and it is weird to me too that, like, this, I mean, clearly was some level of failure on Secret Service or security, whatever, maybe.
Big time, actually.
Yeah.
Like, there's people like cell phone videos of this guy climbing up onto the roof with a rifle.
And they're screaming at police like, hey, he's climbing up on the roof. He's got a gun. Like, maybe do something about that.
I think that they said something, too, if they were like, that they thought, like, people were saying that, and there are visible snipers if you look. Yeah. You can see them, they're everywhere doing their job. They're like, oh, these people are retards, so they just see the actual, like, snipers that are supposed to be, they're gonna shoot the president. Like, oh, shut up, fatso, like, sit down. Yep. Like, but then it was like, no, this really is, because I think even the people doing security or whatever would be going like, okay, what's more likely? That all these goofballs are just seeing like what we have already going on and they're reacting wrong to it, or a guy really just ambled up onto a roof dragging a rifle around is like, yeah, right. Yeah. Which is the wrong attitude to have. Well, but nobody people are bad at their jobs.
Yeah, they are, and that's, the other thing though that was interesting is there is video also of what I'm assuming was the security part of the detail that shot the shooter. And what was interesting about that video too is they already had the tripod out aimed at the shooter but didn't pull the trigger until right after he started popping off a couple of shots, which I also found very bizarre.
That's weird. Yeah.
But once again, that leads me back to, I'm not saying Secret Service is complicit or that security at that facility was complicit. Maybe it was, but if it was, it wasn't Democrats running that.
No,
it wasn't a bunch of liberal, college-haired kids that were running security. It's like it was all run by Republicans. So once again, if there was some conspiracy here where, sort of, I'll say 9/11 style of that, well, we're not the ones doing it,
but we're just going to kind of let it
happen.
Yeah.
Then it's like, once again, who benefits there? And who would, I don't know. I keep coming back to, I wonder if this was not staged or fake, but if it was from the right.
The
weirder end of the right, where, again, it gets Trump out of the way as the one hurdle to do the really crazy shit. Because the reality is Trump is, in my opinion, I mean, all the reasons people think he's horrible, he is horrible. And at the same time, he's also, like, in a lot of ways, politically, at least, like, publicly, like, more moderate than a lot of Republicans.
Well, his former self was almost like...
He's a New York Republican, which is...
Yeah, which is a lot different than the fucking Rust Belt, like...
Yeah.
And also, he's I'll kind of give him this, is that he's very obstinate. Like... Now, he doesn't have any of your... I don't care who you are, best interest in mind. He would rather spit in your face and talk to you. But as far as whatever his own weird shit is, he does dig in his heels about it or whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm not doing this. So it's like, he actually could have posed a block to them if for some reason, he gets in there and they're like, we want to totally do all this stuff. And you're pretty good at looking the other way and just being like a fat piece of shit, right? Yeah. And he's like, hey... You know what? Don't talk to me like that. Actually, fuck you. None of this stuff's happening. Like, oh, God damn it. We have to kill this guy now. Yep. Like, I guess. I mean, I'm pretty willing to, like...
I mean, like I said, I can't put together what scenario makes more sense than that other than what probably actually did happen, which is just that it was some crazy lunatic kid that, to your point, like... He was going to be an active shooter at some point.
Oh, eventually.
Whether it was this or somewhere else. And then there was just a breakdown in security. The answer is probably very unsexy and just not exciting. But boy, if it was like came out that this was the Heritage Foundation was behind this because Trump wasn't right-leaning enough, what a time to be alive.
I think that what we should probably do is push that narrative as hard as we can at every turn, just because even sitting here right now and going, that's probably not the case, but the real thing is just far too boring for us to sit and do nothing. Again, we're like...
But one thing I do got to say before we end this is, once again, Alex Jones got it right.
That's good enough for me. Good night, everybody.
The The Reverend John Wheeler podcast takes zero responsibility for the words, actions, or ideas of its host, guests, or listeners. Though the people on the screen may at times be speaking directly to you, and may occasionally give you direct calls to action, neither Reverend John nor the Alchemical Cocktail Lounge are under any moral or legal obligation to answer for the potentially disastrous repercussions that may arise if you are stupid enough to actually follow the orders of a raving lunatic. Think for yourself and do whatever you want, because you're on your own. If anyone ever tries to sue this podcast, black SUVs will converge on your location in the darkness of night and you will never be seen again. Remember to like and subscribe.